You know, I'm like, so
But
let
it
me
was
go
for
find
beer.
somebody to get the children. They're like, we don't have time for that. I'm like, well, can you meet me around the corner so you can't arrest me in front of the children? I got arrested. I went to jail that day in front of my children.
Gosh.
Here's Sheena Mead on the TED stage.
Luckily, I was able to come home pretty quickly because it was my first defense. And I promised the first thing I did when I got home, I borrowed some money so I could pay that check back. And then I had to borrow some more money to pay back the fees for getting arrested and going to jail because, of course, I was loading the cash because I was a young mom with 4 kids bouncing $87 checks.
Then you got to pay the check
And
fee.
I just knew that chapter of my life was closed. Except it wasn't. Because, see, that arrest and that conviction, it remained on my record. And at that moment, I realized that my true sentence had just begun because, you know what? I was no longer allowed to volunteer at my children's school. I could no longer rent where I want to rent because it is legal for landlords to discriminate against a person with a record. I even faced barriers trying to go to college.
Messed it up.
And still to this day, I am excluded from certain certifications and occupational license. All I could keep asking myself,
Just from a mistake.
damn, what will my
I guess
sentence
checks
be?
can get you in a lot of trouble then.
So, even if you've paid the money, you've paid the bill, you've done your time, it still sticks with you.
Yes,
That's a pretty innocent mistake, and you have to pay for it. It's not something a lot of people do on purpose.
So we were taking a
Some
field
do.
trip to SeaWorld, and in order for me to go on the field trip, I had to go online, fill out a chaperone application. And part of that application, it asked me, have you ever been arrested? And when I went to go to apply for school, I had to check the box just to get my higher education. Seeking employment, people maybe not want to employ you because of an arrest, and then there's being able to rent a home in other communities. You know, I have to mark off that I've been arrested.
So, faced with all those limitations, Sheena found workarounds.
I worked in places where the box was big. I worked for the labor movement. I worked in more progressive organizations. I did a lot of community organizing. I lived in places where I was very upfront with the land. I didn't live in apartments because I knew that's where we get flagged. But then, it was just a few years ago where I got to go try to get a rental place. And we got denied. It's like, when will I ever be free? Is the question.
I wonder how long it stays
Sheena
with
Mead
you.
made a mistake.
I think it's
One
on your
that
record
cast a shadow
indefinitely
over
for
her
some
entire
things.
life. And every
It's
day
there.
we hear about struggles people need to overcome, problems that we all need to live with or work around. But what if there actually is a fix? Today on the show, simple yet audacious solutions. 3 TED speakers combining their frontline experience with lots of data and a little common sense to make laws more effective, care better for foster children, and hold environmental offenders accountable. And so back to Sheena Mead. For a long time, money was tight. She had trouble clearing other checks. But she managed to turn things around. She raised her kids, got a degree, and worked her way up the ladder at nonprofits. And then she learned about something called a clean slate law.
I truly believe that America is a nation of second chances. And I say that because just about every state has laws on the books that allow a person to get their record cleared.
Boy, BLM
once they're eligible.
takes advantage
And
of those
right now,
laws.
there are more than 30 million people who are eligible to get their record cleared. But this is where
BLM
this
gets
is
away with
crazy.
everything, and then a woman like that, she's
of those
screwed.
people actually get it done. They don't know about it, or if they
don't
do,
know
the
about it,
process
but
is
BLM
so
does. They
bureaucratic,
get forgiven for
costly, and full
everything.
of red tape. For
They got
instance,
lawyers
in
to
some
help them
states,
out.
people have to wait just about 5 to 10 years just to even qualify to get their record cleared.
Yeah.
Then you have to appear in person to petition. That means you need to take time off work.
Well, you're
Unless people
72.
know, it was hard enough to find a job in the first place.
1,496.2 miles
and then sometimes
now.
you have to pay processing fees up to $500 per charge. So that means if your crime was being poor like mine, record clearance is not even accessible.
Yeah.
So almost
Unless
every
you got
state
someone like
has a
Soros
law
that'll
on
help you
books
out.
that would
They'll
allow
clear you
people to get their record
for
cleared
robbing a store or
once
breaking
they're
things.
eligible. Can you explain like who is eligible and what is that process?
Yes, so it's not just a cookie cutter policy that every state has.
Here's
a
where the
policy.
traffic was
Some
real
are very much
heavy.
more restrictive.
Where I had
some
that
are
truck
much
in front of me.
more Quick to the point. Once you've been crime free for
Coming
some
the other
amount of
way.
time for certain offenses, you're already eligible. But the burden's on the person. They have to go initiate. You have to know when that clock hits. Then you have to go file a petition. Then you may have to pay the fees that's associated with filing a petition. Then you have to wait for sign off. It could be backlogs, and then you may be able to get it filled or expunged or cleared.
And now you are actually the CEO of a group called the Clean Slate Initiative that is trying to help people who are eligible to do all that. In part, though, by changing the law state by state. Tell me more about exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, so with the Clean Slate Initiative, what we're trying to do is just cut through all that red tape. That the burden is no longer on the person. The burden is on the government to say, look, you said that we're eligible to get our record cleared for certain types of offenses once we're crime free for a certain amount of time. When that time comes up, we're asking you to just automatically clear that record. You have 30 million people that's eligible right now to get the record cleared. But again, how do you scale that past Clean Slate automation? If we're truly a nation of second chances, we don't need to put barriers in to get people reintegrating into society.
How many people have had their records cleared by a law in their own state?
You know, in April, Michigan went into implementation where they started to clear records since the passing of Clean Slate. Over 1 million people got their records cleared.
Wow.
And we have assisted in 3 million people having their records cleared so far.
So your organization has helped pass Clean Slate laws in 6
Avenue of the
states.
Saints.
I mean, how hard
I
was
think
it
is
to
what it's
do?
called.
Or is this something that
This
people
road.
on both sides of the aisle understand is good because it means more people can go on with their lives, they can get jobs, they won't be homeless?
Yes, so we have helped 6 states pass Clean Slate laws, and there are 10 states that have enacted Clean Slate policies across the country. And in many states, they're not even moving this legislation as a criminal justice issue, more so like a workforce issue, because people cannot get back to work if a record is holding them back. And we have a lot of employers and a lot of businesses that are coming into the fold saying, how do we create a pathway for people to come back into the workforce? When we think about 1 in 3 people who have been arrested or convicted of an offense, that means a lot of us know someone who's been impacted.
I do want to ask you, are there people who think, tough luck, you made a mistake, you got to live with it? Or do you find that people are pretty sympathetic or on board with the Clean Slate Initiative?
Yeah, I tell them, yes, I made a decision, and I did the time that the law says I needed to do. That should not define me for the rest of my life. If the law is saying that this should no longer be a barrier, then we need to make sure that it's not. Our plan is to be able to go into
how much she wrote a check for? She got arrested for writing a check?
Over the next 6 years.
I wonder if she's black and they were profiling her. They do that.
And in all 50 states,
If you're black, they're going to go after you.
I mean, it's pretty historic what you and the Clean Slate Initiative want. I mean, it's about changing the way we here in the United States think of punishment and crime. Is it radical to you
Over
too?
here.
Yeah, I think that this is radical. I think it's just common sense. I think that when you talk to people, it's just common sense. And when we talk about redemption, second chances, forgiveness, I think most folks, when you have a conversation with folks and you bring a human element to it, folks are in agreement. We all have to give a second chance. And I think for most of us, we all have asked for a second chance, whether it's from our parents, our teachers, our spouses, our loved ones, even our kids, our community.
Caleb Cook is 63. It's a bit further than I thought. Not much, but somewhat further.
If you could talk to her again, what would you tell your 20-something self after she got arrested?
A lot of things I could say to the 20-something. She could tell me a lot of things. A lot of things she should have done.
She had a good 5 hours to go. 6 hours from here. Over 6 hours.
They made public record. it's going to be turned into
that's
a
a big
passion
car.
that's going to fuel my purpose to help millions of people across the country to realize that they're going to be able to have a second chance and that this thing's going to turn around.